The other important concept that we need to focus on about avoiding is excess calories. Again, our society has evolved into a society that eats way too much. When you look at our portion sizes and our meal components and compare them to other cultures and other societies, it's night and day. Our plate sizes are enormous compared to even industrialized European countries. Remember that food is meant for nourishment. When we've achieved that level of nourishment and we've reduced our hunger, that's when it's time to stop eating. But if our portion sizes are too big, or we're engaged in distracting interactions, so we're not paying attention to what we're eating, we're just gonna keep going. There was one great study that looked at what's called the endless soup bowl. They gave people a bowl of soup, and then underneath it was a little tube that kept feeding more and more soup into the bowl. And they wanted to see how much soup people would eat before they realized they were eating way too much. And it was remarkable. They were using visual cues as to how much they were eating. They weren't aware of how their body was feeling. They weren't aware of the volume they were taking in. And they ate 3 times more than they normally would just because the soup kept getting filled up and they didn't have the visual cue of the bowl being empty. That shows us how easy it is to overconsume calories that we don't need. Their bodies didn't need that much soup, but because it was there, they ate it. So this is why we have to, again, reframe our mindset and reframe how we see food. We're not eating to feel stuffed. We're eating to curb our hunger and to nourish our bodies. Now, if you think of this from an evolutionary standpoint, our bodies have evolved to store excess calories. And what do they store it as? Fat. Why do they store it? Because we didn't have a constant supply of food. You may have a bountiful of berries one day and an animal kill the next day, and then you might not have anything for another 3 or 4 days. So your body needs to store that excess calories. We'll take that evolution, put it in today's society where we have food abundant everywhere. And when we're eating all the time, 3 meals a day, and we're eating more than we need, our body's still gonna store those excess calories. But what we don't have is those periods of food scarcity where we break down those stores. So instead, the stores keep building. That's how we get excess body fat, and that's how we can get excess inflammation and oxidation in our bodies as well. So the key is focusing on the minimum number of calories we need to nourish our body and to curb our hunger. So here's another important concept. There is about a 20-minute delay between our stomachs and our brains. So it takes about 20 minutes for our brains to realize we're full. So when it comes to eating, I recommend people eat till they think they're 70% full. Because chances are, when your brain reaches that 70% full mark, you're probably pretty full. If you practice this little simple technique over time, you're gonna get a better sense of what it means to be full, what it means to be not hungry, and what it means to know when you should stop eating. This plays into being very mindful. We should be mindful in all of our activities, but no place is it more important than being mindful when we eat. Whether it's that soup study or whether it's the 20-minute lag, these things show how important it is to not just eat on autopilot, but to be aware of what we're eating and be mindful of what we're eating. So here's a simple tip. Next time you want to go back for seconds, next time you want to eat more, I want you to stop, take 2 deep breaths. Just that. That's so centering, and it brings your focus back on what you're doing. And you'll probably realize, you know what? I'm not hungry. I don't need to go for more. It's just breaking that cycle, getting you out of that unconscious, automatic reflex, focusing you, being more mindful in what you're doing, and then you'll realize that if you're conscious about it, you don't need those extra calories. Here are a couple extra tips as well. Avoid buffet-style eating. If you're sitting down to eat and there are serving bowls of lots of different food available, it's so easy just to reach, scoop, put it on your plate. Reach, scoop, put it on your plate. It's so available and so easy, and it makes the unconscious decision much easier to do. Now, what if that serving bowl was on the other side of the kitchen? So in order to get it, you had to stand up, walk over there, get it, bring it over to your plate, scoop it, walk over, put it back. All of a sudden, it's a little bit more of a hassle. It's not as automatic, and it gives you time to think It gives you time to check in with your body and realize if you need that extra food. Another tip is plate sizes. I love these studies that show if you have a huge plate with one amount of food or a small plate with the exact same amount of food, those with the big plate felt like they ate much less and felt like they needed to eat more just because of the visual cue of the big plate with the amount of food. Whereas those with the smaller plate with the exact same amount of food felt like they ate much more and they felt fuller and they didn't need any more food. So visual cues like that, just your plate size, can make a big difference. Another tip is avoiding distractions while you're eating. Eating in front of the TV, eating in front of the computer. Those things take your attention away from the food you're eating, and it makes it so easy to, again, just be mindless instead of mindful when you're eating. You want to be social, you want to interact, you want to talk to people, but you also want to make sure you're being mindful and aware of what you're eating. Another concept is the convenience of snacks. One of my favorite cartoons is the cartoon of a little boy yelling across the room to his mom, "Mom, I'm hungry, I need a snack." And the mom yells back, "You know where they are, get them yourself." The kid thinks about it and he says, "Well, I can wait." Why? He didn't need food. He only wanted it if it was convenient. Once it was inconvenient, all of a sudden it wasn't necessary anymore. And that's something I want you to think about and ingrain in your brain. When it comes to all these snacks that are immediately available, we see them, we grab them, we eat them, but they're so unnecessary. So when it comes to thinking about eating the minimum calories required, don't let convenience counteract that. Don't let convenience uproot that. And remember, we eat to nourish our body, we eat to get rid of our hunger. Keep those two things in mind, and you can help focus on eating the minimum calories required and thus improving your health.